Hello and welcome to another of our Motorsport Media Career webinars. I'm delighted that you've joined us. Thank you so much for your time. And this one should be a goodie because we have two incredible HR bosses lined up to take your questions. So let me, without further ado, invite them to the screen and I can introduce them to you. A huge hello. Thank you for joining us to, first of all, Nicola Salter, who works for Williams F1 Racing Team. She is the HR Director. Nicola, thank you for joining us.
Hi, Jenny. Thanks. It's been great to join you today and looking forward to some great questions.
Yeah, we're hoping to get some really tough questions in to challenge you and make you work hard. We also have Paul Mills, who's Chief People Officer. Is that the right term for you, Paul?
Yes, that's absolutely right. It's a rebranded HR Director. Hello, Jenny. Hello, Nicola, and hello, everybody.
So Paul works for Mercedes Formula One team, as you might be able to tell from the positioning of said Petronas rear wing. There we go in the background. So two experts in their field to answer your questions. And let's start by talking about you guys, how you began, because it's a funny old world, is motorsport, and it takes people from all sorts of backgrounds to make it work. So Nicola, if we can come to you and just ask you, how have you found yourself in charge of HR at Williams?
Great question. So I've been at Williams for 20 years this year, which I cannot get my head around. It's gone super quickly. But I actually joined Williams from a public sector background. I trained in HR in the police and did some time in local government. But I've lived in Oxfordshire all my life, and Williams has always been a team that I've fondly followed. And when an opportunity came up to join, to be the personnel manager as it was then, there was really only one person at the time doing that role in the team. I came for the interview and was quite surprised to get it, but very happy to get it. And I've been here ever since.
Good stuff. Paul, what about you? How have you found yourself at Mercedes?
Hi, well, I started my HR career in 1990 when I joined Ford Motor Company, and spent my HR early years growing through the factories. Did a couple of overseas assignments in the US and in Sweden. I did my MBA at Warwick. I was minding my own business at JLR in 2011, 2012, and received a call and was invited for an interview. And the minute I came through the gates and the reception here at Brackley, I couldn't resist. So I was absolutely thrilled when I got the opportunity to discuss a job with Ross Brawn at the time. And so I've been here since 2012 and I've loved every minute of it.
Your title, Chief People Officer, I'm assuming is a very Mercedes title. It feels like a kind of huggy, nice, warm, but very efficient title.
Thank you.
You're welcome. How did it come about? How are you a Chief People Officer? I've never even heard that before.
Have you not? It's probably because I'm huggy and efficient. No, seriously, it is an HR role, so I probably do much of what Nicola does all day. The concept was really born about 2 or 3 years ago, where we were spending a lot of time talking about people as human beings as opposed to people as human resources. And as a result of that, excuse me.
It's Toto Wolff.
Could be. As a result of that, the work that we were doing on well-being, on mental health, the work we were doing on our environment, and these sorts of topics very much around our culture and behaviours and things, caused us to move the job from HR Director, which is human resources, to people, which is a much better reflection of what I do.
Incredible. Right, I want to hopefully get to some of the questions that are coming in already. Just remember, if you look at the bottom of your screen, you'll see the Q&A function. If you want to ask either Paul or Nicola or myself a question, then you can get your questions in now. We have to say thank you to our sponsor, to New Channel Media, Video Productions, who enable us to run these webinars. And this will be available on YouTube after we've finished. We'll make sure it's up there and you can get all the advice, hopefully, that you want. I think one of the questions to Paul and Nicola that I get asked the most is, how do you get into motorsport? How do you get into Formula One? And it's a really tough question to try and answer. And I am aware of that. So we'll try and get some specific questions. But how difficult is it to get into, let's say, F1 rather than motorsport, and keep it quite specific? Paul, how hard is it?
Well, it is hard, it's challenging, and it's because we're actually pretty small. So it's just not the case that Nicola and I are able to offer thousands of opportunities to people wanting to get into motorsport. So first of all, the opportunities are relatively scarce. So then, as a result of that, when we advertise, of course, we get inundated with a lot of applications. We advertised a couple of roles recently for apprentices, and we received about 1,300, 1,400 applications or so for two positions. So, you know, it's extremely competitive. So I think you'd have to say it was hard for that reason.
Nicola?
Yeah, I would echo what Paul says. It was similarly the case, and obviously we're at different ends of the pit lane currently, but and the grid. But you know, for any graduate roles, any internship roles, any apprenticeship roles that we offer, it's very much the same as Paul. You know, 1,000+ CVs that can come rolling through the door, and all of a very high caliber. It can make the job of sifting CVs and finding the best talent very difficult, and we seriously do look at every single CV that comes through the door as well. So yeah, it is tough. It's very competitive, but then that's the sport we're in too, right? So
yeah, absolutely. Right, questions coming in. So thank you to everybody for that. Let's go to the first one, which is Vrishti Shah, who says, given F1's drive towards improving diversity in the sport, has this made you more open to hiring international, i.e. non-UK nationals in your business for varying roles? They put commercial roles here. But Nicola, can we start with you?
well, actually, I think Brexit inadvertently has helped that, because previously we would have been subject to things like resident labour market tests and other means. But I think that the way that the new system works now, it probably does open it up a bit more in how we can go about things. So yes, it's tough. And again, go back to, we still get that many CVs across the board, and it's more than just where you're from. It's just obviously what you bring with you to be hired. But yes, it's certainly something we're looking a lot more at now. I have people working in Singapore and Germany, and with COVID at the moment, I'm sure Paul's the same, we've got people having to work around the world because that's where they're from right now. So yeah, we're certainly becoming a lot more flexible on location than we have been in the past.
Paul?
Yeah, yet again, I'd sort of echo what Nicola was saying. I mean, the main message I think from us both is apply, because we'll take all the applications in, and we're searching for the best talent in the world. And so, you know, please don't hold back because you happen to live outside the UK.
Yeah, that seems to be a theme through all of the questions, really. How do you go about recruiting people from other parts of the world? You know, I don't live in the UK. Is it easy to get a job? Is it still possible? Realistically, what are the chances? If I was contacted the other day by someone who lives in South America, really keen. They've done all the right things so far. They've reached out to drivers in the locality, to local NSAs, and they've got involved. But if you want to make a big switch and a life change, COVID is an issue, of course, but is it realistic to think that you could end up working for yourselves, Nicola?
I would say, you know, Formula One is a big industry. It's not just about the teams, it's about the supply chain, it's about everything that makes, you know, if you think of all the different companies out there that help us make Formula One cars. And I think it's important, first of all, to get good experience in the field that you want to be in. And even if that's work experience or if that's, you know, voluntary work, you know, I would strongly suggest doing it, because it also helps your CV stand out. But again, I'd echo what Paul said, you know, you've got to be in it to win it, so to speak. And I think, you know, we can go into about CV techniques and how people write to us, and, you know, the do's and the don'ts maybe in a bit, but, you know, it's, I think if you're building up the right experience, you're presenting your CV in the correct way, and you're doing what you can, then you've got as much chance as everybody else to be seen for an interview and potentially get that role.
Okay, as you said, let's take it right back, because you kind of want to take it back to people who are at school presently, who may be coming to the end of their sort of formal education and thinking about university. The question I get asked is, do I need to go to university if I want to work in motorsport? Paul, is that a prerequisite if you get someone who hasn't come from university? Is that kind of CV out the door straight away?
Well, that's a very sort of role specific question. So I think if we're advertising for graduate roles, then that's obvious, isn't it? That's a university background. But all of the roles that we have available at any time are not all graduate roles. So we run apprenticeship schemes, again, small numbers and very competitive. But you can get into Formula One as an apprentice in some of the technical topics. So there are other recruits come from other industries a little bit sort of later on in life. And one of the things I would say to this audience is, if you're not one of the 2 that are successful from the 1,300 that apply for apprenticeship scheme, keep pushing and keep driving and keep trying to be the best that you can be. Keep learning, keep training, look after yourself, and progress as rapidly as you possibly can. And then, apply for the vacancies as they arise later. So you miss the apprenticeship scheme, but we take people with 3, 5, 10 years experience from elsewhere. So a degree is not a prerequisite. No, it's very much dependent on the type of role that you're going for.
Holly Clement, Nicola, has asked this question. What are the main qualities and skills you look for in younger people coming out of uni when they're applying to grad jobs compared to other age groups?
It's an interesting question. I think, first of all, it's about showing more of yourself on your CV, because if you think about it, if we've got 1,000 CVs for a graduate role or a few graduate roles, it's pretty given that everybody's presenting to us with the same grades. Pretty much people are presenting to us from similar universities. So what have you been doing? What kind of activities have you been involved in? It may be Duke of Edinburgh stuff. It may be societies, engineering societies. It may be that you've been a STEM ambassador. There's lots of things that you may be able to pick out that really demonstrate your commitment to engineering, let's say. And I think Paul would agree with me as well. It's, we in F1, we're very fortunate. We have an amazing, products that we are supporting for the however many people are working in the team. But you really do need people from a very general experience in engineering, or not necessarily overly specialised for a lot of our roles. But I think it's often what stands people out is, have you been helping restore a tractor? Have you got involved in local mechanics or something? Have you had work experience in an engineering company that may be nothing to do with motorsport? But again, it's just those extra things, and also bringing out, team sports you may have been involved in, or other things that you think are relevant. But again, as I say, we glance through these documents, the CVs that you present, and I think it's really interesting for us to try and just get a bit more of a feel for the type of people we're employing, because we want team players, we want problem solvers, we want people that can come in and get a good job done. And it's very difficult, as you can appreciate. Paul and I are very, very experienced at it with the amount of time that we've both spent in F1. But we really do try and pick out those things that make people stand out, and that will get the interview going more as well, I think, too.
Paul, anything to add?
No, I think that was a great answer. It sounds like we're looking for the same people.
That could be a problem. Not for people at home, though. That's a good thing. Georgia Wiggins been in touch and said, "Oh, please could you tell us what makes a CV or cover letter stand out, and what you would look for in a candidate?" Thank you, she says. And that is one of the questions we get all the time. How do I stand out? And there's, a lot of people on this webinar. There's probably more people watching on YouTube, and they're all going to want the same advice. So how, Paul, does someone stand out?
Well, how to answer a question like that? First of all, I think it would be a smart idea to put yourself in the shoes of the recruiter and look at this pile of, thousands of CVs and just try and imagine what the recruiter's dealing with, and consider how you can stand out in this pack of 5,000. And I think if you just go through that thought process, you'll start to get it, and things will start to happen as you develop your CV. It's a first impression, isn't it? It's that instant moment to make that first impression. So, what we've enjoyed is CVs are becoming quite creative. We're seeing, interesting layouts. We're seeing nice use of tables and pie charts. Seeing fabulous personal statements, really important, that cover the sorts of topics that Nicola was talking about. Don't underestimate the power of the letter. The letter is a great device. They do get read together with the CV, and the best letters are very sort of nicely laid out. We're like the use of technology. We're seeing a lot of links from CVs to LinkedIn profiles, for example. And then, if we're interested, we can click on the link and go and have a look at LinkedIn and see if you've had any recommendations or endorsements from people, things like that. Colour, really, really good. That type of thing. Short, I wouldn't ever do more than 2 sides on a CV. I don't know what Nicola says, but even with my hundreds of years of stuff to talk about, I would never go over 2 sides for a CV. It's too much. Get the facts just there quickly and easily, so it's a glance to see the facts, because that's the easy bit, and then spend some time thinking how you can convey all of those things that Nicola was just talking about in your letter and in the CV. Those extra things that tell us a little bit about your personality, about the obstacles that you've overcome, the motivation and the energy that you want to bring to the team, how you're going to find this 1/10 of a second that we need from all of our employees. How are you going to find that and contribute your 1/10 of a second? That sort of thing. So that's my start for 10. What do you reckon, Nicola?
So attention to detail is absolutely key, which I'm sure everybody's picking out from what Paul and I are saying. I totally agree with Paul. What always doesn't help a CV is when people are clearly applying for a number of teams and do not update who they're applying to. So seeing that I've always wanted to work for Red Bull or Mercedes when you're applying to another team is not always the best way to go. But I think not because we don't accept that that doesn't happen. Again, it just goes back to we need people with exceptional attention to detail. So again, get people to read your CV, get some feedback on it, ask friends and, ask people that you respect and value their opinion, and ask them to say what they think. Does this reflect you? Is the silly things, is the spelling correct? Have I tailored it as well to the job that I'm applying for? Because so often these days it is very easy just to link your profile and just send a very standard CV. But often they're so untailored to the jobs they're applying for. And again, going back to what Paul said, it's very difficult to pick out the key nuggets that you need to make a quick decision on, are you going through to the next stage? And when we say next stage, it's not just one sift often CVs go through. We tend to have, and I'm sure Paul and his team are the same, you have people that are very quick. You can go, absolutely, that's not a suitable CV, but there'll be some that we take our jobs quite seriously. We want the best people, and there'll always be those ones where you're kind of sat on the fence with, and there may be just something on there that makes them go into the we want to meet these people pile. So again, attention to detail, really pick up on what Paul said about the colour as well and the charts and everything. I totally agree. And particularly if you're applying for a marketing or creative job, nothing frustrates me more when we advertise for marketing or communications or creative or anything that requires creative flair. And it's just a bland piece of paper with black text on the page, because it really is your opportunity to show what you're capable of. So again, I would just echo everything that Paul said, but as I say, I would go further with attention to detail and just really making sure that you're tailoring that CV, just not taking that 5 minutes to post the LinkedIn, but tailor that CV for the job you're applying for. And I think you'll see a lot more success with that approach too.
I once had a friend who went for a marketing PR role, I think it was, and they actually sent their application in a bottle. They burnt the edges of the paper of their CV and application form to make it look like they'd been stuck on a desert island for years.
Wow.
And the one thing that would give them saviour from the desert island was to get a job with the company. They got the job with the company, clearly, because they'd gone to so much effort. But can you go to the too zany side for when you're putting an application together? Can it be too crazy, Paul?
Yes, yeah, I think so. Please don't send us chocolate bars and offers of bribe and this sort of thing. It just doesn't work.
Okay, good to know. No chocolate bars. No flowers, no booze. Right, Shura Halim has been in touch saying, is a degree or years of experience more important? Paul, which one would you back?
I think you need to be able to demonstrate basically two things. You need to demonstrate a technical competence and a capability, and then you need this sort of the human factors, the human side. And as we described earlier, you know, if it's a graduate job, then you need a degree. Sorry to say, that's a fact. And as you get on, as the evidence starts to build of the things that you've achieved, if you're able to sort of try and demonstrate what you've achieved through your CV, it's another tip for a CV actually comes to mind to me. It needn't just be a list of, you know, what you've done, where you've worked. It's got to be what's been delivered, what's been achieved, what topics, what obstacles have been overcome. So, you know, as you get more time under your belt, I think there is an offset that happens that sort of says this experience, this demonstrates what I've done compared to the qualification side. So we're looking at those two aspects.
Erin has been in touch saying, I'm currently in my final year as a history and politics student. Does my degree define my future prospects of getting a job in the world of motorsport? Nicola.
Oh, goodness, no. I mean, a lot of obviously people associate us with engineers or technicians, but we, you know, as a company of around 750 people as Williams is today, we have marketing, we have HR, we have finance, we have legal, we have lots of really great project management roles. We have lots of different things. So no, it certainly doesn't. I think it's find what your passion is and pursue your passion for the job that you want to do, because we want people who love their job and who love working for us. But it's so much easier to do if it's actually something you're interested in. And again, you know, we've also had people join us in administrative roles and then progress through the company that way. And I think it's you know, hospitality is another area, and you must see it, Jenny, trackside, you know, people that are hosts are generally not from a catering background, that they've decided they want to go and travel with the team. And we've had people with a variety of degrees, but it really does open doors and get people to think, you know, it gets them to see the different jobs that there are in Formula One too, and what do you want to do? But again, I must emphasise, don't forget our supply chain. Don't forget that all the companies that support Formula One, because you know, to get into Formula One, there are lower formulas and there are other companies where you can get some great experience and then figure out what you want to do and then pursue it in Formula One, like Paul says, 3 to 5 years from now, once you've got some experience.
Yes, Sophie asked the question, should we consider a career in motorsport and F1 as a long-term goal instead of applying right after graduating? Paul, I'll let you field that one.
Yeah, I mean, it's a balance. I think there's pros and cons to both. I mean, I didn't join until the latter stages of my career, and that's because I'm in a profession that is quite transferable when it comes to the transferable skills, and all the areas that Nicola was describing earlier are super transferable between industries. The love of motorsport and the desire and the motivation to keep pushing and trying to get better. That's the defining thing. So whether you're joining as a grad or coming in later is entirely up to you and your circumstances. You can do both, and both are equally effective.
We're getting a lot of questions from people saying they're doing specific degrees at the moment. They're just about to, finish secondary school. Sophia, for example, says planning on studying aeronautical engineering next year. I have a really long summer this year. Do you have any advice on the sort of things I could do this summer? So what should, we are looking at the end of term approaching. What should people try and do? What could they do that would potentially stand out to you guys? Paul, I'll come to you first and then Nicola.
Well, do something. Be occupied. Pursue your sort of ambitions and your interests in any way that you can. They can be technical or non-technical. But, as I was describing earlier, the two axes of assessment for us, certainly, and I bet it's the same over at Williams, is there's a technical assessment and there's a human assessment. And if you can show that during, your summer, you've been pushing forward and doing stuff and achieving things, reading things, learning things, just be active and push yourself. There is no sort of prescription. I think you've been expecting me to say go and get an aerodynamics placement for 4 months, but of course that might be one solution. But I think just push on and pursue your interests and learn and develop, and then you'll come to the end of the summer, and if you've got something that you can say that you've achieved, a step that you've taken forward, a skill that you've learned, a contribution you've made to society and to life and your family, or whatever it all might be, is all great stuff.
Nicola?
Yeah, I totally would agree with what Paul said. And you think about the different things you can do. I mean, it's pretty difficult at the moment, let's accept. It's COVID. Employers like ourselves are only beginning to properly open our doors to work experience. We normally have over 60 people doing work experience with us a year. And sadly, this year, we've not been even able to think about that until maybe around the summertime. So, but when I see CVs and when I think about some of the people in graduate roles with us now, things that I've seen people do, again, going back to, is there a STEM activity? Is there a summer club STEM activity that you can go and help volunteer and support with? Is there maybe sailing even, or helping out at local race circuits? Things that demonstrate your contribution to teamwork and being able to work with other people, and maybe picking up some other skills around project management maybe, or lots of different things. But again, I think it's important, and the reading piece as well, and maybe doing some research or writing an article. And with LinkedIn, it's a whole different world now where you can really make a contribution in many different ways. And so, the world's your oyster, really. I think compared to when I was certainly at university age, I think it's a lot more, there's so much more scope now as to what you can contribute to. And also spend the time doing the research. And I'm sure Paul will agree. There are so many people out there that have written about how to get into Formula One, or maybe spend some time exploring people's LinkedIn profiles. Sadly for both Paul and I, a lot of our colleagues are all on LinkedIn, that we perhaps then go and look at for each other and think they might like to come and work for us. But in the same way, go and see what some of the engineers, you will find our engineers on LinkedIn. Go and check them out and see what they've been up to. And a lot of them do also have blogs, or they might have other things to look at as well, or read Race Tech magazine, or lots of things. But I hope that gives you, between Paul and I, some suggestions of what you could do.
Good stuff. Right, Lucia has been in touch saying, which are the most required positions by the teams when it comes to hiring? So what her best chances of getting in? She's quite keen on communications and marketing. I would imagine that's quite highly sought after, but you guys would know from your experiences, what are the roles that are the plum roles, and what are the ones that maybe don't get quite so much attention?
Gosh, great question.
After you, Nicola.
Oh gosh.
Who said chivalry was dead?
I would certainly say, don't forget the production roles that we have too. I would say, if you think about the car industry, it's come on in many technological ways over the years. But we still have model makers, we still have pattern makers, we still have, so in terms of the hard to find people, what we call hen's teeth, it's typically the hand-intensive labour trades where, we've got some excellent people that work in composites and model shop and various technician roles, but they are actually harder to find at times. The graduate roles, as Paul has said, it's not unusual to get many applications. Communications, Jenny, you're probably better placed than Paul and I to even comment on that, actually. But we get inundated. When we advertise any marketing role, we get inundated because it really is and I guess one other thing to say is it's seen as very glamorous what our travelling people do. And we have communications people travelling, we have technicians, we have engineers travelling, but particularly at the moment, do not underestimate how tough it's been for everybody travelling around the world with the restrictions that we have. But it's certainly the travelling jobs that are more popular, but then let's not forget maybe some of the factory support roles that are really key as well, where we do struggle to get great applications.
Paul?
Yeah, so again, very similar to Nicola. I wouldn't want to call out any particular position or area, but very much all super important to the performance of the team, as it will be at Williams. The skills of everybody in our team are critical and crucial. So we're sort of looking for the best talent in every role through manufacturing and into the engineering world and the travelling world and so on. But to try and give you something of an answer, I think we're finding the sort of most difficult roles to fill at the moment are in the sort of software environment, which is just a sort of hugely popular area with companies seeking people who can do software work. Demand is really high and supply is relatively low. And I think that's an area for us. I don't know about you, Nicola, but if I had to put my finger on one, that's probably it.
Yeah, I would say things around data analytics for sure, and computer science, and even when we advertise, simulation roles, people with those types of computer science backgrounds, they're quite tough to come by. And I think it's because all the tech companies, all the big, great companies are requiring a similar pool of talent. So, and again, if you're applying from around the world, I would say that's probably one of the best areas to probably look into as well, because it's certainly, there's lots of companies looking for those skills right now.
And presumably, if people start in one role, they can kind of get themselves into the company if they've got the appropriate skills, the appropriate experience, and all of the qualifications they need. That's the starting block, isn't it? You can maneuver your way around a company once you're in there. If that's not necessarily your dream job, you can aspire to something else while still loving what you do, Paul.
Yeah, of course. We run a sort of an internal jobs marketplace, just like any other company. All of our positions are advertised internally as well as externally, and our internal applications are sort of looked at first as a priority, and we interview our employees. If they're unsuccessful, they'll get the feedback and what they need to do in order to develop, in order to be a better candidate next time, and they'll go and do whatever it takes to press on. So yeah, getting in is definitely the big step. I agree with that.
So many questions coming through. I know we're never going to get through all of them. So I'm going to try and take a theme and get you guys to answer it. And hopefully we'll get through as many of these as possible. Elena says, do you look for applicants' social media profiles? Do you look through them and assess on social media? Nicola?
Absolutely not. And partly because, again, talking about the volume of applications we receive, I think, we've certainly, as Paul mentioned, we would look at certainly LinkedIn perhaps, or we would look at, when people put links of maybe work they've done or a blog they've written, we would certainly look at those if you were suitable. But in terms of hunting around people's Facebook and Instagram pages, no, absolutely not.
Okay, Mwende says,
Jenny,
sorry,
Jenny,
yes.
I'd add something to Nicola's answer, I'd completely agree. We're in exactly the same boat in the early stages of the process. We haven't got time. But as you get into sort of shortlisting territory, the HR team here will start taking a little bit of a look. And I think it's a topic that those of you that are listening to this should consider, keeping your eye on that profile. And certainly as you get on in your career, if you're working through headhunters and agencies and things, they definitely are.
I agree. Yeah.
Okay, so definitely something to think of for your future.
Yes.
Okay. Right, suddenly goes through Facebook and clears everything up. Mavende says, I'm curious about diversity and inclusion, especially in line with We Race This One. Are there sustained efforts to recruit people from underrepresented communities? She's currently studying, she's a Kenyan student studying in Europe, looking to get into Formula One. Nicola.
So both Paul and I will have great work experience programs for a start. So we have engineers that when we can go into schools or certainly give briefings to various schools, and that can be internationally. So we have the Williams Engineering Academy, which we have over 36 students on from all over the world at the moment, which we align. We source through F1 in schools actually, and again, that's something else in talking about things that people can get involved with, F1 in schools, and there's green power and other things as well to look at. But we have, through those programs, so I have a guy called George Britton, who's currently on our pit wall or supporting our pit wall in the garage, who started on the Williams Engineering Academy. That's just giving you an example of how this academy works, but the academy has people from all over the world, from all backgrounds. So does our work experience. So we'll go into schools, particularly in the UK, because it's easier for us to put people into the UK. But also sometimes when we're in country, we'll do STEM activation locally as well. So it's really important to both Paul and I that we have a diverse workforce. And I think inclusion and has moved on so much in terms of how the world thinks about having a diverse workforce as well. So it's really important. We take very seriously growing our engineering talent base, whether it be female or whatever the challenging background that people have come from. And we want to, like Paul was talking about, a HR director, and I echo what he said earlier, my role isn't just about hiring. My role is making sure we've got the right culture, that we've got, great programs. We have a respect committee at Williams where we have representation from many groups of staff, and we have various days and initiatives that we take part in as a company, as our employees, to really promote diversity and inclusion in our workforce as well, which again helps with managers that are recruiting and opens up the mindset, and hopefully, get the best people to work for us, which ultimately it shouldn't matter what your background is. If you're the best, we want you. And that's all there is to it. So apply. You've got to, we keep saying it, and I think all three of us keep saying it. You've got to apply. You've got to try, and don't give up if the first time is not successful.
Paul?
Yeah, I mean, we've got an awful lot of work going on. Accelerate 25 is the name for our program when it comes to diversity. I think there's a lot of stuff that you can read about out there, so I won't spend too much time describing that, but I would emphasize it's a super important area for Nicola and me. We compete for talent. We're trying to find the best talent in the world, and the last thing that we want to do is to sort of close our doors or not reach the more diverse talent around the world. We don't want to put off ethnic minority groups. We don't want to put off any group from applying. We want the best talent that we possibly can get. So we've become less targeted, and we used to run very, very closely with a number of universities and work with them to identify top talent, and we're moving away from that very targeted approach, and now the doors are wide open and we welcome talent from absolutely everywhere. That's put a burden on the sort of selection processes and things. Even more applications come through, makes it more important that you're able to differentiate your application. But we're convinced, it's the right thing to do. And secondly, it's a competitive advantage because we'll reach talented people that other teams might not reach.
Totally agree.
Amy Sace has asked the question. I've just started writing articles about F1 for my university's newspaper, The Griffin. I'm really enjoying it. I was wondering if anybody actually looks at these types of things when looking to recruit new people. I mean, you guys must do, Nicola. I'm sure you must.
Again, I think it goes back to our own capable resources. So just to put into perspective, we get probably around 30,000 CVs a quarter. And I have a resourcing team of 2 people. Paul may have a bigger team than me, maybe not, but we look at all the channels that we can. We get some really nice emails and letters into the company as well that highlight some of the great work that goes on. And also, I think the great thing about being able to write these days is that it can be shared online and hashtags. And I know we've got a great comms and digital team here are always keeping an eye on where we're being linked and what's being written. So I think these are great things to keep doing it for sure.
Paul, we're going to wrap things up shortly because everybody's very busy and I don't want to keep you too much, but how many processes are there for the average job? Obviously, you'll see something advertised, but from there, you write your cover letter and your CV. So what comes next?
Yeah, so you'll see the opportunity wherever you've seen it, and then you'll apply. So even at that apply stage, things are changing and moving. So we've traditionally been a CV and a cover letter. We're in the process of making some job applicants complete application forms now, so that we can, try and gather the right intelligence and information about our candidates and not just leave it to chance with the CV and the letter. So there are changes happening there. So then let's say you're one of the 1,300 or so that we received for one of our apprentice opportunities. The next stage is the CVs and the letters are read by human beings. They are sort of ranked, and there is a phase there where some applications are rejected at that first point. The next phase that we've moved to now is testing. So we're increasingly using online testing to differentiate applicants. They come in a whole variety of forms, and I'm sure many of the people listening to this will be familiar with the sorts of things we're talking about. So we do the online testing again, that shortens the list. And now we're getting into maybe telephone interviews to have a short interaction with people, and then we're down to the smaller list, and then that's the point at which we might actually get to some sort of a face-to-face, maybe these days on the Teams or a Zoom call. Back in the day, and hopefully again in the future, we sort of meet face-to-face. And then we can go to an assessment centre phase, which is probably, as everybody knows, it's a day or 2 of various exercises and assessments. If you get invited to one of those, you've done extremely well to get that, like really well to get that far. It's something to call an achievement on your CV, I would suggest, even if you get to the assessment centre stage in one of our processes, and same with Nicola's. And then we try and give our candidates a really brilliant day. So it's not just all about being assessed. You'll meet people and you get a chance to look around, because at that point it's a bit of a two-way thing, isn't it? People might turn up for the assessment centre, not like the people, not like the environment, and decide it's not for them. So, we spend a lot of time showing people who we are and what we are, and then we run the exercises, and you can know what they are. There's interviews, group exercises, presentations, this sort of thing. So yeah, quite a process.
I'm not from that background. It just scares me thinking about all those different processes. Nicola, is it very similar with you guys as well?
Yeah, it depends on the role. Certainly for the graduate roles, there's, it can be quite stringent. As Paul said, a lot is being done on Teams at the moment. We're hoping to get back to normal soon. And absolutely would agree with Paul as well. You know, don't be hard on yourself. If you're getting through to the assessment stage and not through the next one, you've done extremely well. But, you know, in any point of the process, we all have to deal with knockbacks at times. And I think it's just brushing yourself down, giving it another go. But also just remember how many teams there are on the grid. We're all looking for great people. And, you know, it may be that a certain location of one team suits you more than others. It may be, you know, certainly what I tend to see, particularly with people that have got more years of experience under the belt, if Williams isn't their favourite team, we may be their second or third favourite team, or certainly the second, or a team that they want to work for. I know, but we hear this, right? And the same with Paul, you know, some people are like Williams, some people are like Mercedes. You'll have your team, but don't rule out other teams. And actually you might, you know, if they're not your first team, it's still Formula One, and you might absolutely love the people you work with in another team. Our environments are similar, but our culture's slightly different, and we are all on the grid together. But, you know, ultimately, I think what Paul would say is we all work with great people. And you've just got to find, like in any job, you've just got to find the right fit for you, and just keep trying. Just keep trying. But just, as I say, just make sure, what I wouldn't encourage you to do is apply for every single job that we have on our website. And again, go back to the targeted approach and just give it your best shot. But the processes, don't be put off by them. It's a two-way thing, and we all have good days, we all have bad days, but ultimately, you know, give it your best shot, and think about, don't just think about, oh, someone's more intelligent than me, clearly, or has been to a better university. As Paul said, it's not about that. As much as your technical capabilities, we're looking for how you're going to fit and work with us. And everybody likes great team players at the end of the day, right? So just bear that in mind. You might have some amazing personal qualities, so don't be put off by the competition, because competition can make us all a bit feel intimidated at times, and that shouldn't be the case.
Some really good words of wisdom. Paul, I'm going to wrap things up just by asking you to do similar to what Nicola's done, just some words of wisdom really for people who are so keen to get into F1 and motorsport and have listened and watched and just need a little bit of that final inspiration and advice.
Well, apply, give it a go. You've got to be in it to win it. I think if I was to give you a tip from the Mercedes side, our values spell pride: passion, respect, innovation, determination, and excellence. Pride. And passion is about your energy and your motivation and how you get out of bed every morning and push. Respect is the team playing side, your integrity, your honesty, your collaboration. Innovation is about the problems that you've solved in life. Determination, you know, it's the obstacles that you've overcome and the achievements that you've managed to sort of achieve, overcoming whatever the difficulties and the issues, the problems that you've solved, etc. And then excellence, that push for that standard, that detail that Nicola was talking about. So, you know, if you're wanting the job at Mercedes, when you're writing to us and you're doing your CVs and things, let's see all the technical stuff that we've discussed, the exam results and the experience and stuff, but let's hear about those other things. Hope that helps.
Amazing. Thank you both so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Everybody who's been watching really appreciates it as well, because it's not often that we get a little insight, a window on your world. So thanks for your time. We wish you the best of luck with this season and going forward with cost caps and all that you're going to have to deal with. And Nicola, let's hope you get further up the field. We'd like a little bit of competition, please.
We will.
To anybody watching, thank you for your time as well. Thank you to our sponsors, New Channel Media. If you want to get in touch, you can. We have an email address. It's infommw2020@gmail.com. So if you've got any specific questions, I'll try and get them answered for you. I just opened myself a can of worms. The hashtag MMW2021. Thanks to you for watching at home. Hopefully this has helped you. Have a look at the other webinars that we've done on YouTube. And finally, Nicola, Paul, thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you soon, somewhere for real.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Good
Thanks,
luck,
Jenny.
Thanks, everybody.
Good luck, everyone.